overall story and my overview of this class is that it helped me learn a lot about working in the sport industry and what I need to be successful in working in the sports. My main responsibilities was to work and gain experience in working in the sports. I worked flying to the hoops, which that was a great learning experience for me. Being around top recruits, seeing a lot of people, college coaches, things like that. I worked at community day at our school, so I help the students scan in, hand out T-shirts. I help fill up the water around the campus, things in that order. And then I also worked the basketball games at our school, so I sold the tickets. I worked ticket session and I mopped the floor. So I also recently got a job with the Indiana Fever, which this is a great opportunity for me. Actually getting in the work industry. I recently worked on May 3rd, and what I did for that was I rebound for some of the players. I also got the water ready for them. I helped set up the court before the game, and take things down, clean up after the game, and then I also was giving out towels to the players. The lessons I learned is the one thing I learned from taking this class is the network. Networking was like a big thing, talked about in this class, and this is the one word that keeps coming around to me all the time. I always hear things about networking. When I talk to other people, they always tell me to network. So network was, talked about in everyone's interview, and just hearing how important it was to, just go out there and talk with people. You never know, it could be the next opportunity for you. So networking is probably the number one thing for any work industry. The skills that I learned are communication, listening, and quick thinking. Communicating is probably always gonna be a good skill to have. You always gotta talk, make sure things are on the right track, and things in that order. Listening, you gotta be able, to listen and follow directions. You don't want to have somebody to keep telling you to do this, do this, do this, and you're just not listening. And quick thinking, I had a situation where I was working a basketball game here at the school, and everything is over the phone. So it was an elderly person, and we was telling him he had to scan his phone to scan the ticket, and he pulled out a flip phone, and you can't use a flip phone to scan a QR code to get into the game. So I mean, at that point, we just had to let him in for free. That was probably the only way. We couldn't just kick him out because he didn't have a iPhone or up to date phone. So yeah, and then working in the flying to the hoops, I learned a lot from there. I worked in there previously, so I think this would be my second year working there, and I kind of did the same thing. Watch over the VIP section. I watched over the scores table. Yeah, things in that order, and everything was pretty good, and I learned a lot from that. The dude that helped us, I think his name was Chuck. He told us a lot about himself and how he been doing this for years, and I learned a lot from him as well. So yeah, yeah. And as I said before, I learned a lot from working the basketball games here. Mopping the floors, working the concession, and then the tickets. Like the story I just told. The concession wasn't pretty bad at all. And the mopping wasn't bad either on the floor. The concession, the only bad thing about it was which was we didn't have as many as people come by. And then the one thing people will always want is I think it's was Diet Pepsi, and we would always be out of Diet Pepsi. So that was probably be the only problem I had with the concession is just telling people we was out of Diet Pepsi, and also another problem was not we wasn't taking cash at the time, and a lot of people would bring up cash, and we would tell them we was digital, everything is online, or credit card, and they would get mad at us, and then the only thing we could do is just apologize and tell them like we're sorry, but everything just is online, is credit card. But I did have one customer also tell me that online it says we was card and cash, so I had to let my manager know that online it says we are card and cash, when people come to the game it says we only a card only, so I had to make sure that get fixed. Excuse me. One challenge I had faced is when I was working, the Flying to the Hoops event. There was someone sitting in the VIP section when they didn't have a wristband. So I was standing at the bottom of the stands, and it was somebody guarding it or standing at the top of it. And they told me that somebody was sitting in the VIP section without a wristband. So I just went up to him and asked him if he had the wristband. He told me no, and I was like, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to like sit here. And then I told him general admission was like just a row behind. So he got up and sat there, and then I want to say around like halftime he wanted to talk to me about it, and I just told him you know you just had to have your wristband to sit there, and we had a long conversation. Nothing bad. It was just a long conversation, and comes to find out we were from the same place. So things was it just went good from there. So feedback. So recently I just worked the track meet. I did long jump, which I had to rake the sand. It sounds easy, but it's kind of it could be difficult, to some people. But so when every time someone would jump into the sand pit, I would have to hurry up and rake it, get as flat as possible so the next person can go. And the person that would show me how to do it, he was impressed on how fast I caught on to it, and he jokingly said that he wanted to take me with him on his next road trip to another track meet. Insights from presenter. So the presenter I chose was Matt. The one thing he said was the one thing we can do going into the sports industry is enjoy it and stay true to what you believe in. You don't want to go into a job and not be happy. So you want to go into it and enjoy it and actually have fun doing the job you want, doing something you love. After hearing Matt talk about the things in his interview, made me want to look into coaching. So I just want to be around the game, even if if my time up after college and I don't play anymore, I still want to be as close as possible to the game as I can, and coaching is probably the closest thing from there. So the episode I chose was the 6 traits, and the 6 traits are problem solving, ability to work in the team, strong work ethic, analytical skills, communication skills, and technical skills. When a hiring manager sees you have all these skills, they would feel confident in hiring you. Putting these skills on your resume would make you look better and give you a better chance to get an interview. I will apply these skills to my future job / current job. These are the top skills, to have in a working in sports industry. My future goals. My future goal is to work for a professional sports team, and right now I have achieved that goal. So I have to set another goal, which my next goal is to move up and to a higher position, maybe even being the manager of the team. Making sure I hire people on to my stuff, and we work from there. So that would be my next goal. So in conclusion, taking this class has helped me learn a lot, and about working in the sports industry, watching all the interviews, seeing how things go for them and how they got there made me understand more of what I need to do. And this really pushed me to get the internship job I have now. It's pretty good job, working with the Indiana Fever as a team attendant. The one thing they was telling us about was, we had to keep things professional, be working around professional athletes, you could say like celebrities and things in that order. So, we have to keep things professional. We can't just, run up and be like, oh, Caitlin Clark, I'm a big fan. Can I please get a picture? That's not professional at all. You have to make sure you keep things on a professional level. And that's all. And then I want to, say thank you to, for, teaching us all the things in class and the opportunities you showed us.